What happens to a trader when he's on the floor versus when he's on a walkabout or remote? This chapter specifically, I will be giving to every single trader that feels that it's time that he can go independently and on his own. He got to a stage where all of his money was running out. And so he wrote this letter to his father. And so imagine that moment where you're in your 20s and you're having to speak to your parents and you have to go back. And in the shortest period of time, after being in a walkabout for a number of years of underperformance, very quickly, along with a couple of junior traders, were able to edge Mimic, the razor. And all of a sudden his financial life completely changed. And so every trader that goes remote, they just feel, I am myself. I have created this performance. I am independent.
And he literally said himself, my greatest regret of that period is this.
We're speaking today about the Voyager. Now, the Voyager for me is perhaps the solitary story of empirical evidence of what happens to a trader when he's on the floor versus when he's on a walkabout or remote. And this high correlation between being on the floor and performing and being remote and performing. This trader, source, birth in France, they're all creative, the French, and he's equally creative. Comes from a background of playing piano, from racket sports, incredibly good tennis player. I've actually lost a bet to him. I have to take him to the French Open in the next year or so. And his creativity in these arts, in these forms, these so-called, alternative thematic experiences of being creative, problem solving on a tennis court, the creativity of learning a musical skill such as piano. He's the only trader that can beat me throughout the whole of the Axia futures, 100 odd so traders who can beat me at table tennis consistently. And he destroyed me in Poland. I attribute that to home ground advantage of where he currently lives. But this trader is also phenomenal with regards to edge mimicry, which I want to explore in today's video. And edge mimicry in the sense that he is second to none, very similar to the collector, in receiving knowledge when he's on a floor. His curiosity, the way he wanders around the floor, from trader to trader, speaking to them, being very receptive to providing information, but equally absorbent of receiving information. And almost a social transaction that he engages with consistently on the floor that then begs the question, when he goes remote, he loses that very limb that makes him so powerful as a trader. And he's also a trader that I feel it's almost only when his back is against the wall, because he does enjoy the balance of a lifestyle. He travels a lot. He had phenomenal seven-figure years in the 2020s, 21s. And we'll explore his story and throughout today's session. But here is a trader that when he's back against the wall, he switches from remote to a high-performing team and he performs fairly quickly. So it begs the question, is he a trader that wants to truly fulfill his potential? Is it cost of balance versus cost of performance, which you have echoed throughout these 10 videos? And for you, if I segue across to you, as we introduce this chapter, the chapter of the Voyager, and let's just describe the Voyager and why the name the Voyager, and what does this trader mean to you?
The Voyager, in the sense of he has had a very meandering path, both with physically traveling to different floors and both with P&L swings in career direction, career resurrection, career decline. And all of that can be attributed, to his meandering phases throughout his career. Also started for quite some time now. Actually, I believe he was either in the same or just the graduate group before the Warrior came onto the previous floor, which I'm sure viewers and readers of the book will get to know. The first now defunct firm they used to all trade at. So he started in 2009 as well. And since then, he's been on multiple floors. And he is the perfect person to land the airplane that the book has been flying, the conceptual airplane, full of observations, processes, the antagonisms of learning and performing, burdens of a strategy, so on and so forth. Like all of that, we introduced in various chapters, the evolution of a cash flow to a wealth building trader and what that means. Absolute performance, blood sport style versus do you sacrifice that for a different end game, and so on. All of that comes to the landing strip that is the Voyager, and it is a perfect case study of he adheres to these principles or his career follows along those lines and has very quickly resurrected or taken off his career. And in other times in his career, especially early on, no fault of his own, these are just the traps. His career took a very bad turn when he swerved away from all these principles and heuristics and observations.
Let's just on that beginning part, because I think there's an unbelievably large lesson for many junior traders who are in the throes or in the midst of developing their edge and allowing the distraction of deals, splits, costs. Yes. And so let's rewind to that previous, the firm where a collection of traders lost their entire accounts before the birth of Axia, and him starting well on the floor. So, he had all the hallmarks, his ability to be profitable fairly early on in his career. And the moment he became profitable, he decided for the distractions of better deals, better so-called splits, and leaving that firm where he was performing, and he went to another firm that was just down the road. He went to that other firm, and that's where his career started going the other way. And so this lesson of traders pursuing at the beginning of their careers of a better split by 10% here, 5% here, or lower round trip fees, one of the questions that they don't input in their decision-making is the cost of leaving a team of performance. You want to elaborate a little bit more on this, Bogdan?
Yes, and this is where we can bring in something we've seen in the other video and again in the other chapter, because the Voyager is chapter 12, so it's this penultimate chapter in the book. And if you want to analyze this through the lens of the adjacent possible, understanding where he can develop and push next, he went from a floor of about 50 people, both a collection of experts to learn from, bringing in Anne Murphy's Paul's phrase from the Collector's chapter in her book, The Extended Mind. He basically moved from a very potent extended mind of both experts and peers who are developing alongside him, and forgoed all of that for a better split, not by miles, but a better split, onto a firm that quite literally had, if I remember correctly, like literally less than 5 traders, maybe 3 of whom weren't even profitable. He was one out of the 2 profitable traders at the firm, maybe in his second year in.
And it literally, automatically, his baseline of performance just dropped significantly.
And imagine being among the best when you're only in your second year of trading. How terrible that is. To be in a room, and I mean that in the sense of you never want to be in the best in the room, because then it's a lot harder to learn from. There's no more vertical learning, And so that ended very quickly. This phase where he breaks away from the floor, again, through no fault of his own, the markets turn, at least shall we say no fault of his own, because he was so new in this strange, complex domain. Because the mistakes of people who are new, and again, what the book tries to address,
and youthful exuberance of the grass is greener.
Grass is greener, better splits, all sorts of things, and as you said, the very problematic issue of being so successful so quickly. As we say at the beginning of the book, may you be born in hard times. Yes. Because you will not survive otherwise, May you have the good fortune to be born in the hard times of the market environment,
yes,
shall I say.
Absolutely. Yes, well said.
Indeed. So this is when he is left home, shall we say, home for what he will eventually return to a more familiar floor. So the Voyager, because it is a homecoming story, in a reference, a thinly veiled reference to the voyage of the Odyssey and so on. Yes, so he left that and then he moved to Madrid. Another floor, completely different set of characters. He still had, let's not forget, profitability. So in this period, let me clarify, Alex, even after he left the floor in the first one, then went on to this tiny little sideshow of a floor, and then coming to Madrid, he was still profitable.
And that profitability disguises the arc of the potential he could have been on.
potential could have been on, and yet his development and growth and adaptation to what was about to come next, the shift in environment, was stagnant, in fact, decaying. And as we talked about in the Heroes chapter, we talked about in the video, that there's an insidious lag effect. It confirmed to him, oh, I'm profitable, I can move, why should I be here? And that still confirmed that, oh, I can make the move to Madrid. I now have money of a carefree 20-year-old. I now have time. And as we said in the collector's chapter, and again throughout the whole book, the trader's resource dilemma. Having too little time and too little money to learn the game and develop is just as bad as having too much time and too much money. What does that mean? He had all sorts of income, all sorts of time on the trading floor. He was still profitable. Then the markets instantly changed. The volatility got sucked out. This is when we started reaching the, just after the European debt crisis. At some points in Spain, I recall him saying, he was still making sometimes 10,000 a month, still quite as a young trader. And then the volatility changed, it sucked out. The beautiful, bountiful jungle changed to a barren wasteland, and all of a sudden he's trapped. He's stuck. He can't make any money. Everything's changed. And he was situated amongst his friends, a great group. But as he admitted, there's a great group, but no one was really making any money. And to make it even worse, on that Madrid floor, they were all doing all sorts of different things. Some were trading, U.S. equities. Some were trading cash fixed income. Others were spreaders.
It's almost like being involved in a floor where you're trying to learn some certain tactics of a squash player next to a tennis player, next to an American football. Yeah. There'll be substrates and some meta performance ideas, but from tactical daily perspective, it was thin.
Especially in the beginning years, when that matters, the highly tactical applied matters profoundly in that period. And so, but again, the lag effect, I have time, I have money, I have enough savings, it's okay, we'll see. And that didn't cause any profound change, any more development of his adjacent possible.
Because there's also the good living of a Madrid lifestyle as a young 20-year-old.
Which he didn't want to forego either. Yeah. And he, so fast forward. What is a possibility becomes the inevitable. Savings start to run out, account starts to dwindle. He still shows up, rocks up very, this is not someone who's also shirking and not showing up.
He's professional.
Yeah, very professional. But you see, no matter from the day to day, if you're trapped in these high-level forces, they're extremely hard to break no matter what you do, unless you realize them and you really take concerted action against them. Lo and behold, account dwindles to nothing, the savings turn into dust, and now he has to make a choice. Then would you like to explain the next part, Alex? He sent a very intimate letter to his parents, a sort of how should I put it, a cathartic experience for him. When I spoke to him, because you asked me what his personality is, Alex. He's a very serene individual.
He truly is.
You have a bit of sense of this in the student, but whenever I meet him, it feels like, he doesn't fit the classic profile of the wound-up, cynical trader or of that generation before, and he came from that generation. So someone who refused the cynicism and the dogma and I am a stressed-out trader, therefore it is legitimate for me to behave and think this way kind of mentality. Very serene, very sportsmanlike. Yeah, very endearing individual. And so but you could tell the way he said next. He explained to us he sent a very cathartic letter to his parents. It was basically him. I wouldn't say an admission of defeat, because as we say in the book, trading is you live in a strange temporal space of time where no matter what happens today, there's always a tomorrow. And but would you like to explain that letter, Alex?
Just with regards to again painting this character, he's an individual that truly loves the markets, and he cannot imagine doing anything else. And so, whether he's been remote on his own or on a floor where the extended mind of transacting high impact learning experiences is thin and far between, he's still committed as an individual. Now, he got to a stage where all of his money was running out. Trading account was running dry. He was running, his personal savings was running dry. And he somehow recapitalized a small amount, if I'm correct, that went dry again. And he was literally on his last
legs, yeah.
And so he wrote this letter to his father. The family had some personal savings invested for each of the children that would only be realized in a decade or so. And so he requested and told his father how this means everything to him. I will do my utmost to get to where I can and repay this money back. And so imagine that moment where you're in your 20s and you're having to speak to your parents. You've been independent for a few years, and you have to go back and ask them. And it's
now the homecoming.
It's exactly. And in that moment, writing this letter, the parents liquidating the money, he then receives the money, starts trading, starts losing again. And very quickly, he made the decision, and that was more or less at the same time the birth of Axia. He knew some of our old traders, but he didn't want to be in London, and he contacted a certain raiser. Contacted him, went across to Poland, and in the shortest period of time, after being in a walkabout for a number of years of underperformance, he all of a sudden reattached a limb, because he was going to be in the space of so-called trading gods, or trading God, being the raiser. The raiser being one of the great adapters, innovators, deep thinkers, reflectors, had created a multitude of strategies. And with the natural demeanor, questioning, curiosity style of the Voyager, very quickly, along with a couple of junior traders, were able to mimic the raiser. And so all of a sudden, there was just this heightened sense of what's possible again, the performance. The raiser was making six-figure trades almost, every other day in certain markets. The Voyager learned these trades very quickly. He created a unique frequency for himself, and in a very short period of time became an unbelievably profitable trader leading into 2020, and made, in the space of a month, over 7 figures. And this was a trader that worked incredibly hard in Poland, created a young family at the same time. Accumulated some assets, cash outright, buying properties in the town, and plus a mountain home. And all of a sudden, his financial life completely changed. And that was, again, in the first days, learning very quickly off a floor. Then going onto a floor, being with one of the legends of the London prop futures trading industry and the European futures trading industry, and then elevating his performance through his ability to inquire, to question, to distill, to receive information, receive knowledge, make it for his own, and then perform. Where do we go to from there?
To reveal various other strands that have been going throughout the book, Alex. Do you see how at each instance there was the ultimate formation of no plan B, and that he then actually did have a plan? When he turned profitable right at the beginning of his journey, the floor manager at the time actually said, what are you doing? You got to turn it around. You're not going to trade until you give me a solid plan, how you're going to tackle everything and so on, or you're fired. So that was no plan B, and really forced him, cut through that, resolve the trader's resource dilemma, gave him a fixed time. And it happened again when he was in Spain, and just before he moved the floors. Again, he actually, came back and said, okay, I've got a plan now, I'm going to do this, so on and so forth. He came to Poland. Within 4 days, he said, this is it. I have faith. I'm going to move. Done. So when push came to shove, he didn't hesitate.
Right?
Yes. He didn't hesitate when push came to shove. But again, what you just said there, the financial situation changing, again, market changes, turns your strengths into weaknesses. That is, now you have, again, time and money. Now, again, you don't have to face facts that you have to relearn or readapt and so on. You can not have a plan for a very long time. And
you can survive, still have the false confirmation biases of P&L,
yes,
positive P&L.
And should we say the Voyager was on his own voyage by himself again? He was spending more time away from the floor.
If you're enjoying this discussion about the Voyager, one of the traders in Traders of Our Time, and you want to go deeper, head over to tradersofourtime.com to sign up and get Chapter 1 for free. You'll stay in the loop with exclusive content, insights, and updates. And you'll be among the first to read the book when it launches on March 27, 2025. Traveling a lot more.
Remotely.
Enjoying the fruits of his labor.
Yes. Again, which one should, but in a human sense, but should one do it as a trader?
Yes, this is the question.
Again.
That is the question.
Yeah. So all these processes are playing out. But you see how he then went from Spain back to Poland under the razor. His adjacent possible blew right open. And I remember very distinctly the kind of language and the kind of confidence he had when he said he understood now the nature of the razor's like single tick specialty trades. He also saw the power of not having to go offside. And he said, I remember distinctly, he said, I spent 10 years trying to handle going offside and I never could. Because every strategy that it involved him doing after his leaving England, joining Madrid, he was trying out all sorts of trades, being hugely offside, learning, structure and so on. And it didn't really make sense to him, i.e. he was burdened with strategies he couldn't handle himself properly. The burdens of a strategy, we talk about it throughout the whole book. The minute he met the racer, the reason he took off so well is because those kind of trades fit him very nicely too. Not perfectly like the razor in his well-crafted suit, but very nicely. Like he could also start leveraging bigger contract sizes very quickly. He said, when I was trading back in Madrid, he could barely go past single lots sometimes or single digit lots. That is not an uncommon affliction where people find it hard to scale. But the second he met the racer and he understood the burden that strategy requires and could shoulder it very, very easily. Scaling up as the scaling and sizing came very quickly after that.
And it was very natural to him when he receives confidence. Because people can receive confidence and not have the confidence to scale. And he shifted very quickly gears from first to sixth gear and pushed on until his momentous year of 2020, where approximately in a week making 7 figures on trades again that he learned within his curiosity, within the team side. But this question then getting to another stage of I can enjoy my life, the fruits of my labor. And if I were to challenge every single one of our traders, and I might not be the one that the traders who are potentially watching a video, the traders who are part of our team watching this video, that I did this workshop in Bahamas. I drew a sketch and I drew a graph. And that sketch was the dangers of going remote when you're birthed on a trading floor. And the main danger is that you forget all those subtle information networks that you developed, all those knowledge transfer networks that you had developed, all those little birthing sounds on the floor when the markets are moving, that embodied experience of feeling pain on the floor. And that starts becoming your alchemy to decide what trades that you'll be executing. And so every trader that goes remote never considers how to restructure or resurrect a so-called digital environment that replicates what they had on their physical floor. They just feel, I am myself. I have created this performance. I am independent. And if I were to look at the last decade at Axia, every trader who's successful on the floor that went remote, there is a clear divergence in equity slope versus those who have stayed behind on the floor. It is clear. There's those ones that before they went remote, they were outperforming many of the traders on the floor. When they go remote, those traders on the floor 2 years later are significantly outperforming. Because just once you've chosen to go remote, and the reason is we choose a career that we feel we can have choice of where we go. And that's how we always feel. It's we hear of Buffett, of George Soros, of Stan Druckenmiller, these, Paul Tudor Jones. But what I'd love to understand is, has there been research analysis behind their team? I do know there was an FT article on the so-called king of the bonds, Bill Gross, who mentioned when he left PIMCO and he started another fund, he only then realized that he lost his brains or his extended network that was at PIMCO that made him really think deeply and explore creatively. When he moved across, he never performed like he performed at PIMCO in those days. And this is the same for every single trader. And it's what I challenge all our traders. We currently have the Voyager in our office here in Cyprus. In the first week back, he's probably had his best 2 days that he's had in the past 2 years of being trading at home. So I'm going to be challenging him this very week because I know his potential, because his very nature of how he receives information, I've said it throughout this video, his very nature of how he receives information is his ability to be curious. And I think you've seen it on the floor already this week. You've been on the floor here in Cyprus all week.
I was sitting right next to him.
And you've been sitting right next to him. And I think you've noticed or seen the way he walks around and he collects his information.
Alex, that underpins the biggest message of his chapter and one of the biggest messages in the book among every other message in the book, which is foregoing that floor, especially when one is so embodied and so adept at learning, is quite truly one of the greatest opportunity costs, bar none.
Bar none.
And he literally said himself, my greatest regret of that period was leaving the floor of the, his original floor where he started. So I'll stress that again. It is the greatest opportunity cost, no matter how you calculate it. I just think it's incalculable. Put it this way. I think one way to sum up an implicit message in the book, and I'll make it now explicit, what is implicit in so much of the cultural uniqueness of Axia and what has truly revolutionized that, and I can tell from discussing from people who've been in the industry for longer periods of time, is the evolution from an individual trader to thinking of we and to operate as a team. Rather, thinking of I'm an individual trader, you now are an individual trader amongst, shall we say,
other
equals,
individual
we's, yes. And the problem then is that if you've grown up in a culture of operating as a we and you move towards as an I, that is when things start to go wrong very, very quickly. And I think the teams of the future, the nature of our profession is to further evolve the power of we as opposed to wanting the I. And as you said, most people come here because they want the I. Yeah. They want to be by themselves. They want to not have a job working with other people. They want to be solitary. They want to be in their basement with a hoodie on and, think they're part of some sort of matrix and they pull out money and all these things. And it naturally brings a lot of that kind of desire. And nothing could be further, nothing could be further than the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And this chapter, for me, if I were to give it to someone, well, I'll be giving it to many people, but this chapter specifically, I will be giving to every single trader that feels that it's time that he can go independently and on his own. And just understanding what you do forego. So this is a chapter for understanding if you do go on your own, what are those opportunity costs? And also the power. Because this trader, I would see nothing better for him because he's shown us that he can be a multi-seven-figure trader. Nothing better than to see this trader voyage across the planet, but onto floors that will electrify him, that add knowledge to him, that add edge to him.
That expand his adjacent possible.
Exactly, that he will be able to absorb and transfer that into expressing himself as a trader of supreme potential. So whether he decides to voyage across the planet remotely or voyage across floors of expertise, that is the choice.
And to bring in one other thing we've been discussing, viewers and readers will be familiar, it comes down to the power of perception. How that perception, again, shifts based on your financial situation, how that perception shifts of you're thinking, you're best working as a we, to then thinking, I want to be by myself and move on. And then all the little confirmation biases thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move. Grass is greener on the other side. But you weren't thinking those thoughts 2 years ago. In fact, you're thinking this is the best place I can ever be to be developing. And it's very interesting to see the individual stories. And there'll always be individual reasons and stories as to why people will conjure reasons as to why they feel the power of environment is now not so powerful, when it is probably one of the most powerful things in your career,
One of the most powerful,
if not the most powerful.
Absolutely. And sometimes I've tried to, and I'm not going to be mentioning any nations here, but I sometimes feel there's cultural differences of which cultures deem being remote is of a higher life value versus those who don't. And so this, again, just to finish off from my side, it's a chapter that you will explore all the potentials of a journey that you can go on, all those little decision points when you decide to make change. And have you considered what's happening and what will happen in your career by making the change? And the biggest part that we don't consider, that's what we want to bring to life in this chapter, the biggest part they don't consider is those subtle information inputs. and knowledge transfers that are happening on a floor of expertise. And when you transfer from one floor to another, are you transferring for a deal, or are you transferring to acquire additional expertise?
And Alex, just to add to that, we've seen this multiple times where people who have, again, grown up on the floor, perhaps they're new grads, and they are experiencing a lot of friction. They're experiencing a lot of problems growing. And then all of a sudden, they've gone from, I want to be here, this is the best place in the world for me to be, to then thinking, you know what? And then they start thinking, well, I kind of don't like waking up so early in the day, or I don't like having this late night evenings. Or maybe, I actually want to trade from home because of, and so on and so forth. And then they have this this bad incentives where they create their lifestyle first and try and build an edge around it, or so-called edge. Again, I have a lot of problems with that term. Viewers will know by now. Probably in the grad's mind, they will still sum it up as a very reductive, like, I want a different edge. I want to trade differently. Whereas the thing that you end up emerging as a trader, meaning the skill sets you deploy to navigate the markets, becomes what it is through your own experience of friction and creation. And then your lifestyle has to be fitted around it, rather than the reverse. It's not lifestyle first and then you work backwards to whatever you think you may want. So it's like, I want to be free all day and only look at the markets for 2 hours a day. I'm going to be a swing trader. It doesn't work like that.
And we see that pattern
so many times,
consistently when a trader is facing friction.
And that trader, again, it's not like I'm not accusing people of being like stupid or dumb, but it's these insidious processes, these little like voice in your head that starts one day and starts telling actually maybe you're better as a different kind of trader. Maybe you should do these kind of things. No, because I can't. And all these things slowly start warping your mind, and then all of a sudden, before you even realize that power of perception, you've completely flipped the script. Where before you understood that you need to emerge and grow as a trader naturally on the floor and learn from others and then see what becomes of you, and then fit your lifestyle around it, meaning probably that you have no lifestyle anyway, in the sense of someone who's also just launched their business and runs a startup has no other life, and all the sacrifices entailed. But they as I said, they seek the lifestyle first. So again, it's just acknowledging all these forces that can make or break you.
It's almost once that candle wick of that original passion and curiosity when you arrive on a trading floor burns down after 6 to 7 months, and the reality of the demands, what's expected in this game. Currently in the Trump markets, traders, the senior traders staying at their desk until midnight. Every night. There's this, physical demands, mental demands on you. And once that romantic period is burnt out, that romantic of learning new, acquiring new information, once that burns and then your first bit of friction, that's where those transformational monkey mind chimp on your shoulders starts to speak. And as you've mentioned, Bogdan, I might be better as another trader, and what type of lifestyle can fit me. Mm-hmm. And just to close off, Bogdan, my closing note is, for those who want to read this chapter, take a very deep introspective, wherever you are on your path and how you decide how you participate on your path. It's in Traders of Our Time, be released on the 27th of March, 2025. And you can watch, maybe there'll be a Netflix one day, but you'll be able to read chapter 1 for free on tradersofourtime.com. Download that immediately now to get a sense of the book, of the way it's written, and it's extremely excited for people to be reading not only this chapter, but all the other chapters, but chapter 1 can be started right now.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you, Bogdan.